Welcome to this webinar on the Freedom Formula. I will be taking questions that have been raised throughout the program to date, and I'll also be summarizing what I think are key points. Although we've discussed some of this again, it's important to provide a perspective for why you want to make good use of your time. Before you start planning your schedule and putting things together, it's important that you have a bigger perspective of yourself. Think about what are your long-term goals, targets, areas in terms of health, wealth, relationships, and even recreation. Because it is when you have these areas well marked out and chunked down in sufficient detail, then you will find later on that when you are actually devising programs and rituals in specific areas of your life, they will be meaningful and you will move along the directions that you want. When you have not chunked out these large pieces clearly, then there will be challenges because every now and then you will say things like, why am I getting bored? I find this ritual or the schedule too stifling, and that's really because at the very beginning, when you started putting them together, you didn't put together a perspective that met all your physical, emotional, and mental needs. So when you're designing your goals and outcomes over a 3 or 5 year period, those are the ones that meet your physical, emotional, and mental needs. Those are the outcomes that give you the juice of life, make your life meaningful, fun, entertaining. Only when you have those pieces, then is it worthwhile working backwards and putting in the details and the rituals. If those pieces are missing, then every now and then when you design protocols and procedures, welcome to this webinar on the Freedom Formula. I will be taking questions that have been raised throughout the program to date, and I'll also be summarizing what I think are key points. Although we've discussed some of this again, it's important to provide a perspective for why you want to make good use of your time. Before you start planning your schedule and putting things together, it's important that you have a bigger perspective of yourself. Think about what are your long-term goals, targets, areas in terms of health, wealth, relationships, and even recreation. Because it is when you have these areas well marked out and chunked down in sufficient detail, then you will find later on that when you are actually devising programs and rituals in specific areas of your life, they will be meaningful and you will move along the directions that you want. When you have not chunked out these large pieces clearly, then there will be challenges because every now and then you will say things like, why am I getting frustrated? Why am I getting bored? I find this ritual or the schedule too stifling, and that's really because at the very beginning, when you started putting them together, you didn't put together a perspective that met all your physical, emotional, and mental needs. So when you're designing your goals and outcomes over a 3 or 5 year period, those are the ones that meet your physical, emotional, and mental needs. Those are the outcomes that give you the juice of life, make your life meaningful, fun, entertaining. Only when you have those pieces, then is it worthwhile working backwards and putting in the details and the rituals. If those pieces are missing, then Every now and then when you design protocols and procedures, you're going to find challenges and difficulties following through. One of the questions that kept coming up was uh, the idea of a wind down ritual. So you need to have a wind up ritual, which is you get ready for the day, and a wind down ritual, which is how you wind down so that you can rest and recover. A wind down ritual signals your brain that it's time to wind down and prepare to switch off. It can be as simple or as complex as you need it to be. For example, my wind down ritual is get a warm bath and make sure I'm sleeping in a cool down room. I spend 15 to 30 minutes of reflection on the day and the lessons learned, and 30 to 45 minutes reading curated reading material like cartoon comics like Garfield and Hobbes, because this allows me to wind down. I found out it works. When I read my normal adventure stuff or hardcore science stuff, my brain winds up and I cannot relax. The reason why you want to allocate time into 15 minutes chunks, because time taken for you to learn something new and break it down. If you can't do it in 15 minutes chunks, you're not going to be able to learn a new activity. So being able to break it into 15-minute chunks is the minimum size that tells you, okay, you're capable of learning this. Of course, when you're actually in the process of learning it and getting it into greater detail, you may have to break those 15-minute chunks to 1, 3, or 5-minute chunks. And this is really not about when you're learning something new and you don't compress time. You don't try and take a shortcut, because then you're not going to learn it well. When you're learning something new, you take as much time as to learn it. Because once you've learned it and it's automated, then you start saving time. Your purpose of learning a new task is so that it's part of a group of other skill sets that will allow you to do a lot of productive work in the areas you're interested in. One of the other major learning lessons for me as I progress along this pathway is that welcome on the freedom formula. Although we discuss some of this again, it's important to provide a perspective for why you want to make good use of your time. Before you start planning your schedule and putting things together, it's important that you have a bigger perspective of yourself. Think about what are your long-term goals, targets, areas in terms of health, wealth, relationships, and even recreation. Because it is when you have these areas well mapped out and sunk down in sufficient detail, then you will find later on that when you are actually devising programs and rituals in specific areas of your life, they will be meaningful and you will move along the directions that you want. When you have not chunked out these large pieces clearly, then there will be challenges, because every now and then you will say things like, why am I getting frustrated? Why am I getting bored? I find this ritual or the schedule too stifling, and that's really because at the very beginning, when you started putting them together, you didn't put together a perspective that met all your physical, emotional, and mental needs. So when you're designing your goals and outcomes over a 3 or 5 year period, those are the ones that meet your physical, emotional, and mental needs. Those are the outcomes that give you the juice of life, make your life meaningful, fun, entertaining. Only when you have those pieces, then is it worthwhile working backwards and putting in the details and the rituals. If those pieces are missing, then every now and then when you design protocols and procedures, you're going to find challenges and difficulties following through. One of the questions that kept coming up was uh, the idea of a wind down ritual. So you need to have a wind up ritual, which is you get ready for the day, and a wind down ritual, which is how you wind down so that you can rest and recover. A wind down ritual signals your brain that it's time to wind down and prepare to switch off. It can be as simple or as complex as you need it to be. For example, my wind down ritual is get a warm bath and make sure I'm sleeping in a cool down room. I spend 15 to 30 minutes of reflection on the day and the lessons learned, and 30 to 45 minutes reading curated reading material like cartoon comics like Garfield and Hobbes, because this allows me to wind down. I found out it works. When I read my normal adventure stuff or hardcore science stuff, my brain winds up and I cannot relax. The reason why you want to allocate time in 15 minutes chunks, because time taken for you to learn something new and break it down. If you can't do it in 15 minutes chunks, you're not going to be able to learn a new activity. So being able to break it into 15-minute chunks is the minimum size that tells you, okay, you are capable of learning this. Of course, when you're actually in the process of learning it and getting it into greater and greater detail, you may have to break those 15-minute chunks to 1, 3, or 5-minute chunks. And this is really not about when you're learning something new and you don't compress time. You don't try and take a shortcut, because then you're not going to learn it well. When you're learning something new, you take as much time as it is required to learn it. Because once you've learned it and it's automated, then you start saving time. Your purpose of learning a new task is so that it's part of a group of other skill sets that will allow you to do a lot of productive work in the areas you're interested in. One of the other major learning lessons for me as I progress along this pathway is that if I'm expert in an area, I should only use 40% of my resources, leaving 60% for crisis, emergencies, and learning new skills. If I'm using more than 40%, like I'm using 50 or 80%, it means that many of the processes and skill sets are not sufficiently automated, or I haven't managed to break them down into the smallest possible components. So when I can get it down to 15-minute chunks, then you've broken it down to the smallest possible component. So you design your life so that you can function with 40% of your capacity, and 60% is for crises, emergencies, and for learning new skill sets. Every now and then somebody will ask me, okay, if you're going to learn new skill sets and we have to maintain our daily schedule and all of that, what is the proportion of resources? Again, I will refer you to the 40-60 rule. 40% of the day is what's essential. 60% is extra capacity. If you're going to learn new things, then you do the same 40-60 rule. 40% is spent on learning new stuff, and 60% is again for all the extras that will arise. This way, you can learn new things without becoming overcommitted in terms of time, energy, and other resources. Just remember that as you grow older, you want to minimize the use of your willpower because your willpower is tied up to the cognitive uh, section of your brain. And every time you use your willpower, you exhaust yourself, and your capacity to be effective will be greatly reduced. An effective way of using your time in terms of if you have to answer calls and all of that is to schedule your calls for 3 times a day for about 45 minutes English required. Do that in cycles of 15 minutes, and if your calls take longer than that, then do another cycle of 15 minutes, and then carry on with the rest of your activity for another 1.5 hours before you do another round of those cycles. The key to saving time is not to do more, but to do less, so that you can focus on what you really want to do. Anytime you're working, you're doing so within the constraints of your physical, psychological, and emotional constraints. If you are paying attention to these constraints, you're aware of them, and use them, stay within their limits, and you're respectful, you will find that your resources will keep being to you. If you're constantly violating your physical, psychological, and emotional constraints, you find yourself getting exhausted, tired, frustrated, angry, so on and so forth. So this will then give you reasons to experience a range of emotions, which will then incapacitate your capacity to be efficient, focused, and productive. Be realistic, be selective in what habit to build, and build it first. In one day, you can have a maximum of 3 times 45 minutes of productive tasks. After you've had about 3 sessions of this, you need to go back to doing routine repetitive work, and it's not going to be easy to do new creative productive work. Calculate your ROI for the time you're going to spend on a project. All the new habits must have an intended outcome, and the ROI investment must be twice triple the time. For example, my ROI is my 1 hour cost is 1,500. So I'm going to spend 100 hours on the project, and the project needs to be worth at least $150,000 of recurring income. And if it's not, then it's not the best use of my resources. So it's important that you be realistic about your time, energy, and resources. You have to treat your goals as if you're going to war. How many battles can you win? How many wars can you win? Plan to use 40% of your time to do productive work and 60% of the remaining to handle emergencies and crises. After 35 years of age, something happens to your brain and your resources, and you can no longer use them as you did before. So you need to build in slack time, redundancy, which will give you that 60% extra capacity, which will allow you to cope, thrive, and be very effective on a long-term basis. Before you start, it's important to assess whether you have sufficient resources, time, energy, and skill sets to achieve your desired results. If any one of them is missing, then it's important that you acquire the necessary resources or the skill sets first before you go after your intended outcomes. So planning for forwards towards a goal or a target means that you actually need to chunk in and include time required to acquire the resource or the skill set before you actually embark on going after your goal. Life is a marathon, not a 100-meter sprint. Once a skill set is automatic, you can layer on the next skill set so that two will become automatic. We layer the different skill sets and to achieve a macro strategy, a macro tactic. So speed reading, for example, is made up of multiple micro skills. And you need to build multiple sets of such micro skills before you become an effective speed reader. So you can manage small projects within the time scope, but you can only learn one new habit at one time. You can allow one project that requires a new habit, and the rest of the time must be filled with routine work. And if you cannot break down your desired skill set into 15-minute chunks and then into even smaller chunks, you cannot learn the skill set. So if you're learning a new habit, take a 15-minute habit, break it down into skill sets, and break it down into 1-minute chunks, and practice each of those chunks. When people go about attempting to become more efficient with their lives, the first stage is the stage of unconscious incompetence. They're grossly inaccurate with the time estimates, and they have to do it a few times before they actually recognize that they're grossly inaccurate. At that point, they move from a state of unconscious incompetence to conscious incompetence. When they're consciously incompetent and they cannot do a good job, then they are ready to start becoming competent, because then they will actually start making accurate measurements of how long it takes to do the task. So in one of the modules, we actually had you plot out your day, because that is going to make you real, keep you real about how long you actually take to do something. Remember, one of the graduates in one of the programs was talking about how when she actually set up to do something in the day, she realized that she would start to do one thing and then she get distracted and do something else. And therefore, her time estimates were grossly inaccurate. So when she did that, that's when she's actually beginning to realize that's how she's really spending her time, as opposed to the illusion that she was being efficient, focused, on target, on time, and all of that. You can plan to learn one new skill set at a time, and not two new skill sets of the similar type. So consider you're planning to learn a skill set that is like motorbike riding, and at the same time you want to learn web development. You can do this provided that every day you're working on a different project and you're not attempting to learn two of them on the same day, and you're practicing different types of skill sets. Sometimes people are concerned about how we're going to take time for every other activity, and how do we transition between one activity and the other. The key here is to be realistic about how long it takes to do an activity. If it takes half an hour to eat on a normal day, then expecting to do so in 15 minutes is roughly unrealistic. If you meet a friend or a member of the family and you spend time with them, and normally when you do so, you spend about 3 hours, Then scheduling only 1.5 hours for that meeting and the encounter is grossly inaccurate. You also have to build in a buffer. The buffer can be anything from 5 to 15 minutes. But I think 15 minutes is a reasonable buffer, provided you don't have to build in travel time. Once you build in travel time, you must build in buffers for travel time as well, because you never know whether there's a traffic jam or not on that day. So every activity has to be filled in the buffer time. If it is just you and there's nobody else involved, the buffer time can be 5 minutes. So between doing one activity and transitioning to another, you can have a 5 minute buffer time. But if it is about meeting other people or going for meetings, then you may want to build in a buffer time from between 5 to 15 minutes. One of the other questions that came up is, how do we set priority views without getting too big a picture? The reality is that you're actually going to set priority views at two levels. There is the macro priority view, your large-term target in terms of 3 to 5 years. And the large-term target will then be broken down into specific time sequences over a period of time. And then you work backwards all the way till you come to the present. So when you're dealing on a day-to-day basis, you're actually working in a pretty small picture, but that small picture is part of a larger picture. So if you set it up correctly, then you don't get overwhelmed with either the large picture or you don't get too micro-focused in the small picture. You realize that that small picture is part of a larger picture and you're content with that. If you haven't got your priorities right and you haven't worked out all the pieces, then you're going to experience the conflict of how do I set my priorities without getting lost in the big picture. If you've done it well, you can have this big picture and you know that when you're working in your targets on a day-to-day basis, you're moving steadily and surely in the direction of your big picture. When you're doing your work, it's either going to be urgent and productive or urgent or important but not urgent. These are the ones you want to focus on. If you are really busy, but nothing that you do changes things in a significant way, and the only thing you're doing is firefighting, then it's very often due to a lack of multiple systems and positive habits.
John.
I've already mentioned how it is that on an average day, you can have 3 cycles of 45
20 minutes maybe.
minutes of productive work. So you want to design your life so that those 3 cycles of 45 minutes of productive work are when you do your core important work, and the rest of it is you're doing the administrative stuff, the backup stuff, the stuff that needs to be done every day but doesn't require creative thinking or sophisticated technical skills. It's more the type that you can do on an automated basis. It is crucial that you develop regular habits with regards to your food, your exercise, your nutrition, your diet, and your food. In fact, time needs to be devoted towards developing such regular habits. Only when you have these habits in place, then you can develop more sophisticated skill sets and other habits. While you are developing such a habit, it will take time, effort, and energy before these habits become routine and regular. Until that time, you need to spend enough time to do this. When you decide to have a meditative routine or a regular habit of some kind, it's very important that the habit is done at the same time and even in the same place on a regular basis. That's what creates the power of a habit. When you keep changing it, you're not training your brain to turn it into a habit, and you keep having to power in order to be able to embark on that habit. So it's not regularized, it's not routinized. So it's important that as part of routine, if you meditate after the, you always meditate after the shower. Meditate after waking up, always keep meditating after waking up. Don't keep changing. If you establish clear outcomes and clear ways of rewarding yourself or having recreation, then you will find that when you're attempting to implement the schedule, there are times when you find it boring trying to be so precise. You may also feel stifled and that you're being controlled, but the reality is this happens when you do not have enough capacity for recreation, or you haven't spent enough time working on forms of relaxation and rest and recreation. So everything feels a bit of an overload. Understand that until and unless you can have a regular routine, you will not enjoy the true benefits of focus, being on time, on target, and having regular habits that propel you in the direction of success. If you attempt to multitask, that too can represent a significant block to be able to follow through and implement a habit. The number of target goals that you can set in a year. You can generally pick a set of goals in different areas of your life. The reality is that the number of goals that you set are dependent on your big picture, your big vision, as well as your personal capacity to process and handle these goals and targets. If you have a higher bandwidth, then you'll be able to handle more goals and targets. If you have a narrow bandwidth, then you'll be able to handle a lower amount of goals and targets. So it's important that you be real with yourself and recognize the scope of your resources and how much you're capable of when you're planning for things. I will reiterate this again. Set up your goals. Have a big picture outcome. Then on a day-to-day basis, while you're setting up your goals and your targets, you want to have enough flexi time in order to give yourself time to prepare from between one meeting and the other, one encounter and the other. So if you're doing that, then there won't be any challenges about being on time, on target. If you're actually not giving yourself enough time between one event and the other, then you're always going to be running late and you'll be filled with blame and remorse about how you're not on time and on target. But the reality was, you simply did not do sufficient buffer size.
Okay, thanks everyone for joining us on this webinar. Dr. Sundaras will be around again very soon to take your questions. Just stand by, please.
You can ask the questions live.
You can actually ask your questions live, and Dr. Sundaras is at hand right now. Thank you.
Hi everyone, we got some of your questions. Mercy of the internet. Okay, Vincent, you said about to chunk the task down to 15 minutes. Should I record down the individual tasks that I perform each time for future chunking? That's exactly what you need to do. If you actually look at that's one of the modules where we actually ask you to chunk down, write down how you spend your time over 3 days. We did that. You'll be able to work out what part of your daily routine is actually profitable, what part is admin and routine work and things you can outsource or give away, and what part is actually a complete waste of your time. If you want to be precise about chunking things down and you want to turn it into a habit, you need to make it really precise. My suggestion is that if you actually want to turn it into a routine habit, after you've got an overall 15-minute chunk, you may even want to chunk it down further in terms of 1 to 3 minutes. When I do my 15-minute exercise or 20-minute exercise, my exercise routine is actually chunked into 30 seconds. That's the level at which you want to do it, and that's the level at which when you can do that, it becomes an automatic habit. For recording purposes, you can either keep track by writing it down in a notebook as you do it, or you have audio, or you actually get somebody to record you doing it, and then you go back and take it apart. Now, if you say 15 minutes is too short for a task, actually you want to take a task to break it down into a 15-minute chunk, because I'm going to repeat this. If you cannot break it to a 15-minute chunk, you haven't reduced it to its lowest common denominator, and if you don't reduce it to its lowest common denominator, you cannot reproduce it. So this is why all the while we ask you to get more and more precise in terms of how well you're documenting it. So my take on what you're saying, Vincent, is that you're probably have a lot of unconscious competence. So you're doing all of these things automatically. But if you're going to learn something new and you cannot break it down, you will not be able to make it automated. Comments, observations, perceptions. I think public chat is enabled. If you can speak, we can hear you. Otherwise, you can type. So I'm glad you got it. Like, say for example, let's talk about outsourcing. So can you outsource? If you're going to outsource and you want somebody else to do something that you always do, if you cannot describe to them exactly what you want done, then you're going to have problems. Okay? So when I decided to build my outsourcing team, I spent almost 1.5 years figuring out all the things that I wanted done. I came up with a wish list. Then after I had my wish list, I figured what I needed first of all was an outsourced manager, somebody who will manage my team. So I went through my wish list of all the possible things I want done, put it down on one piece of paper, and then I went through and posted it up and said, look, this is what I want done. Can you do it? So that was my first test. Who is going to read it and get back to me? Now, because I made it really, really, really specific, when people replied to it, I could actually assess their responses. So only one person out of the 15 people applied actually replied specifically to it and went 2 or 3 steps further, which meant then that she automatically fitted the scope, and I employed her, and then I tested her over 3 weeks, gave her little task, and monitored her response time. Yeah, and so Vincent, if you do this, if you cannot describe the task to the other person in tiny details, then you will always feel dissatisfied, angry, and frustrated. Because there will be a difference between how you do it and how they will do it. So if you want them to do it the way you want it to, maybe if the person is more competent than you, then they could do it differently and get the result. But I suspect that at the level you're at, you're going to be competent or very competent at many of the tasks that until and unless you can break it down, the other person will never meet your standards. Yeah, exactly, when things are not done to your expectations. And that's because you didn't make it explicit. When I ask people to do stuff, I make it very explicit so that if it doesn't happen as intended, I can go back and do, okay, I've given you a 12-step sequence. You have missed out sequence 3 in that 12-step sequence. Please go back and get it right. Which then means that it becomes a good learning curve for the other person, and it helps me understand how the other person thinks. Because the moment they miss out step 3 in the 12-step sequence, they're actually telling me how they think, how they process stuff, and I can then better tailor my instruction and communication to them. So if you are an entrepreneur and you are doing stuff and all of that, normally you'll be able to see things really fast and put it together. And how fast you can grow your company will depend on how much you can outsource and give away of the admin and what I call the nitty-gritty of your business, so that you can focus on the bigger items. If you have a problem, documenting it and being precise about it, you cannot give away. So right now, most of what happens in my practice, in my companies, once I've gotten it down to the nitty-gritty. I can tell somebody, do this, and they will be able to write it down and duplicate it and teach somebody else. Yeah, then you should post it, because I think I answered nearly all the questions, but if you posted different set of questions, you can put it here. Yeah, that's exactly my take on it. And once you do that, you cannot teach somebody else. You know, once you do that, you can't teach anybody else. If you want somebody else to take over and do the nitty-gritty, then you must make explicit the areas of competence that you've acquired and be able to transfer it. So when we talk about levels of competence, we start off with unconscious incompetence, when you don't know what you don't know and you don't think it's important. Then you move to conscious incompetence, where you become aware of what you don't know. Then you move to conscious competence. Then you go down to unconscious competence. And finally, the highest level is something called reflective competence, where you have mastery and you can reflect on what you can do and you figure out how you can teach it to others. So Vincent, if you want to grow your company, you actually have to move to reflective competence and be able to transfer your learnings and your skills to the people under you. And when somebody doesn't get it, it's an opportunity for you to figure out how much better you can communicate whatever it is that you have to that person so they get it. Of course, if they obviously do not have the skill sets, then they're not the right person in the first place. Okay. Okay, then I know you put down a lot of detailed stuff, but the reality is you you have to be real about how much you can handle. Okay? So if I consider face-to-face time as productive hours, and I can only have 2 effective discussions of 2 meetings, let's see. And I can only have optimum of 2 effective discussion of 2 meetings per day, and allocate 3 hours per meeting. Yeah. See, you are getting lost in the details. The bottom line here is how can you be more productive about your meetings? Okay, so originally you may want to have some kind of automated profiling tool or questionnaire that they fill out so that you screen out who is worth your while to talk to. Okay, once you've gotten that, then you know that if you spend 3 hours with them, it's going to be productive. So let's say that you can do 3 hours a day, 6 hours a day, 2 meetings. But you need to work out a system so those meetings will be productive for sure. Now, when you tell me, describe what you're doing, it seems that you're not very confident that when you meet this person, it's going to be 6 hours. Okay, which means then that your pre-screening methods are not effective. That's the first point that I'm going to make. It's no point getting into all these complex mathematical equations and trying to squeeze it if your fundamental premise is not correct. So if your fundamental premise is about screening them and you're not screening them appropriately for whatever the reason, then even though in theory you can work out, okay, you can only do 2 meetings a day and all of that, you're just going to get frustrated. Like I make sure that every one of my clients who meets me is sufficiently screened so that I don't waste time with them. It's either when they're sitting in front of me, I have a 5-minute screen. They've already been pre-screened, so then 5 to 7 minutes is to make sure whether we are right for each other. So if I lose time, I lose 7 to 10 minutes max. If you're not the right people for me, we terminate it there. Okay. So I'm looking at all that you're going and all of that, research calls, developing plans. The more information you can gather from them, the more you can develop plans. And my take on it is that if you look at all the samples of all the different types of people that you're working with, you probably have 7 plus minus 2 possible plans for maybe 3 variations. So you have 21 plans. The moment possible plans. So the moment the person fills out a questionnaire, that will then shrink the number of possible plans that you can have for the person down to maybe 7. So when you're sitting in front of you, and as you're asking questions, you can actually pull out the right possible template and fill it out. And then you have a potential plan that's ready for them within, say, the first 1.5 hours. You take another 2 hours to fine-tune that. And then at the end of it, maybe you can ask them how much better you can improve that plan. Right? That's what I would talk about. So the bulk of the question is because you don't quite understand how you can make your time effective, okay? Keynote and Pop Diction. Now, Keynote, okay, the purpose of a keynote is to create branding. So you have to distinguish when you're making money, when you are investing in your future by branding. Things like keynotes, things like major public talks. Your immediate aim is to break even because once you have established a keynote, after a while you're creating a brand presence. You should take that keynote and then recycle it and use it over and over and over again. So that's an investment in your future. Do you get what I'm saying then? Right? So you are, yeah. Okay. Then, I mean, capturing all the hours. Yeah. Okay. So you're great from the way I see it. You're great with the details. You just keep missing the big picture. The big picture is how do you increase the the overall value of your approach. Mention improvement, yeah, okay. You've got the mechanics all done. I can't possibly improve that, but I can only improve how you are looking at the value of what you're doing and the relative value of what happens when you're doing a keynote, so on and so forth. You could even take your keynote, turn it into a transcript, and then when you have a potential new client that you want to wow or woo, you would actually give them the transcript and audio tape of yourself as a gift before they even turn up so that they know what you're all about. Does that make sense? And I think for nearly all of you who are business people, this is something to think about. Also, let me know because we are about to launch a new program to help you write a book and make it a bestseller. And we even know how to do it for people in the financial industry and all of that so that you don't fall foul of your regulations. So this is more of the branding and marketing branding approach. Any other questions? Comments, observations, perceptions? Then if you got what I said, put down, write something and saying you got it. Minson, if you had a general sense of what we were talking about and how you can work with people and teach your people in future, just put that down so that I know you guys are getting this. It took me a while to work through Dan's questions. Anybody else with any other questions? Comments, observations, perceptions? Okay, that's good. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. Both of you are getting it. In fact, Minshon, if it will make you feel better, this was one of the hardest lessons for me to learn. Because okay. That's right, Paige. You got the numbers more or less right. The reality then is that if you're working a full day and you are doing all these new things, the actual amount of time you have to learn new things is extremely limited. So you have to be very, very careful about what's the new stuff that you're going to commit to. Okay? So yeah, you got it right. You got to be very, very careful about what new things you need to learn and if you really need to learn it. Right now, I know enough to know that most of the things I needed done, I don't need to learn it. I just need to find somebody else to do it because it's more cost effective that way. And then, if you're interested in the book, that one version is you just write one chapter and it's a public and it's a group book and we teach you how to market it. So it's not like you have to do everything on your own. It's 2,000 words. You can take the bulk of the material that you have, condense it to 2,000 words, and you'll be with other people, and then you get an opportunity to learn about how to do this whole marketing spiel, which is what you've been interested in from the very beginning. Here we give you all the pieces. If you are interested, send me a email and I will follow it up with you because I don't want to take up too much time in this program talking about other stuff. So one of the things you must get very, very straight is you must be precise, you must work out the details, and yes, there is very little time to learn new things now when you are working full steam at what you're really working on. So right now, when I start in the morning and I am having my breakfast, I'm actually planning the day. So I have about half an hour from the time I have had my breakfast and I'm in the MRT and I get to work out what it is that I need done for the different companies and how this will work out over the next 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, or even 1 year. So everything has to be blocked out way in advance. And I'm just going through my checklist. Then my different members of my different teams will call me up and give me status reports. And I have this overall picture of where I want to be, and I bounce off that overall picture to see where they are and what amendments have to be made. So the joke was that recently, one of my friends, I'm a study group leader for one medical group, and one of my friends who organizes this program, she changed her emails and she lost access to all the emails from September to December, and that was when the schedule for next year was available. So she was freaking out. So she sent me a email or SMS saying, look, I totally lost the schedule. Can you help me? And I replied to her and I sent her the 1 year schedule within 15 minutes. She started freaking out. She said, my God, how do you do it? So I'm running 10 companies and I have that at my fingertips. And she's running one company and she can't keep track of it. Okay? It's not about being smart and all of that. It's about having a reproducible, organized system. Because over the years, I've had to survive multiple computer crashes, multiple episodes where people don't follow through, don't do what they're supposed to do, and then they'll come and tell me you didn't tell me. Okay, so I built that into a system. There are backups, and I know how to access the backups. And knowing that I have these backups makes me far more relaxed. So, any further questions, comments, observations, perceptions? By the way, I will be doing a talk on the 20th called Having the Best Year of Your Life. This will not be a webinar, this is a live training program. We will be informing you about it. It's, yeah. And we'll let you know about it. And this is to sign people up for the time program, the next time program coming up. You all will be invited to participate again as a thank you for being in the early bird list. Yeah, Keynote is actually an invitation from my industry. I'm invited to speak as a key platform leader, as a practitioner in my industry. So should I? Okay, you want to use, okay, then this is really important, right? This will set you up as an expert in your industry. So what you, okay, thanks Vincent, I got that, great. So what you want to do is, you want to make sure you take lots of shots and a copy of the invite letter and all of that, and talk about how you've been invited by your industry to speak. Okay, that will enhance your reputation. So don't use too many of them. Have one or two. The rest of them should be to the public and public forums and all of that. Is that specific enough? So I'm just going to take one more question, then we will call it a night. Any other questions? Okay, we have no more questions. Thank you very much for turning up. Have a great day. I look forward to seeing you at the last webinar on the 21st, which will be one day after having the best year of your life program. Great. Thanks a lot. Thanks, Linda, Vincent, Danny, Dan Chong, and Paige. Have a great day. Okay, so